Childbirth is like having 20 bones crushed at once. I don't even remember at what point my underwear came off. I have always wanted to have a natural, unmedicated birth, 10 centimeters, fully dilated. Women in labor coming through. And that's how you know you're like really in labor. And I didn't know how I was gonna make it to the hospital. I kept feeling like I was gonna puke. Like, is tonight the night I'm gonna go to the hospital? Hi guys, it's Cynthia. Welcome back to my channel. As you can see, my entire background has been babyfied. I'm now in my new mommy era and I am loving it. I've been posting more on Instagram, so if you've been following me there, you're pretty much up to date on what's going on in my life. But just to catch you guys up to speed, I had baby, I did my 1-month confinement. Obviously, it's been a big adjustment to life with a baby, a newborn, and our nanny just started, so it's helped free a lot of my time. So I'm starting to get back into content and I'm just so happy to be back online. So as you can tell from the title, this video is going to be about my birth story. So I'm going to start with that and then I'll have a Q&A section. So the different sections are going to be pregnancy, labor, epidural, postpartum. Lots of good stuff here to go through. I'm going to try and be as concise as possible and try to move this along quickly, but happy to answer more questions in the comments. If you're excited about this video, give it a thumbs up. If you aren't subscribed, hit that subscribe button to follow me on my mommy journey. And without further ado, let's get on into the video. So I'm just gonna fast forward to the day I went into labor. Baby actually came 2 days before his due date. Pretty much that whole week, I was kind of anticipating his arrival. I feel like sometimes I would feel a little bit of like cramping, kind of like period cramps. And my doula actually told me that a lot of women actually go into labor at night. So when I would feel that cramping, especially at nighttime, I remember always being like, oh my God, is today the day? Like, is tonight the night I'm gonna go to the hospital? And every morning I would wake up and I'd be like, hey, well, there's another day. So I was pretty antsy and just really awaiting baby's arrival. I remember waking up and telling Tim like, oh, I feel like I have a little bit of cramping. But sometimes in the mornings you get these fake cramps and sometimes it's just from being dehydrated. So I drank some water and I remember he put on some music. We danced around. I was feeling good. And then around 10:30, 11, I was like, like I'm definitely feeling cramping. Maybe these are contractions. Obviously, I've never experienced a contraction before. So I was like, I wonder if this is it. So I told Tim, oh, can you start tracking? And so he started tracking. And every time I kind of felt something, I would say it. And I think pretty much within an hour, since it was kind of coming, going, I was like, okay, I think I'm in labor. Like, I think today's the day. So the cramping was pretty mild. I still remember, I think by 1 o'clock, I was still taking photos. I filmed my little baby mama dance and I was feeling good. I had eaten a little bit of chicken pho. I ordered that because I just wanted something warm and hearty. And by 3 o'clock, I remember the contractions were definitely picking up. Tim drew me a bath because our doula said that could help. So I remember getting into the bath and I remember having contractions, pretty strong contractions in the bath. And so once I hopped out of the bath, I got into the shower. That was probably around like 4:35. And I remember actually I got into the shower and I had such a strong contraction that I had to get out of the shower and get on my hands and knees. And by this time, it was really starting to pick up. This was about maybe 5-6 hours after my first contraction in the morning. And I remember it was dark by that point. So it was maybe like 5:30 and my hair was like soaking wet, but I just did not have the energy to put on clothes to dry my hair. Originally in my mind, I was like, oh, I still have time to like Dyson my hair, put on a little makeup. No, it like escalated so fast. And so by that time, I was just hunched over my big yoga aerobic ball. That was what felt best, just like laying on it to help move me through the contractions. And I think my contractions were still not very steady. They were coming maybe every like 5 minutes. So Tim kind of saw where I was at and he started packing his bags. He's a really quick packer, so he just wanted to pack last minute. I was still going through my contractions and I remember moving out to our living room where we had the Christmas tree lights and Tim had put on like Christmas tree music on the TV. He was trying to create a really nice, cozy, comfortable atmosphere because I have always wanted to have a natural, unmedicated birth. I'll go into more of this later on in the Q&A, but basically if I want to do a birth no epidural, that's why I had hired my doula, because I wanted the techniques to help optimize for that, but also to make sure baby is in the best position for an easy, unmedicated birth. One of the key things she said was if you want an unmedicated, no intervention birth, or you want to minimize your interventions, you want to stay at home and labor at home as long as possible. So that's why she was trying to have me go in once we hit a 311 or 312 contraction pattern. So what that means is contractions coming every 3 minutes, lasting 1 minute, and consistent for 1 or 2 hours. And at that point, I was still, I think, around like every 5 minutes, but it was still not very consistent. So I was still in our living room, but I remember the lights and stuff were starting to really bother me. So I shut all of it off. And by that point, Tim had kind of looked at me, and he had been in contact with our doula the whole day, texting and calling. He started to mobilize and pack things up and put it in our car. And I remember when we were starting to think about leaving, I told him, I don't know how I'm gonna make it, because I suddenly felt super, super nauseous. And now looking back, I think the nausea was from how much pain I was feeling. And so I was just hunched over my big yoga ball on all fours, just trying to move through all the contractions. But I would get this like wave of nausea that would like prevent me from leaving home. So we were kind of stuck at home for maybe 20 minutes because I kept feeling like I was gonna puke, and I didn't know how I was gonna make it to the hospital without puking. And while we were in the bathroom, I remember being like, actually, I think we really need to go. Like, I'm in so much pain. Like, at this point, I just want the epidural, like, just get me to the hospital. But Tim was really trying to keep me at home so that I could follow my original birth plan, because I had not hit that 311 pattern. But at that point, I was just in so much pain. I was like begging him like to go to the hospital, and I was like, I just want to go because I need the epidural at this point. Like, I can't keep holding out. So finally, after one contraction and after my nausea subsided for a second, I just grabbed a plastic bag and we just headed out. And I remember we stopped for contractions on our floor. Once we got to our garage, I stopped for another contraction, and actually on the way to the hospital, I had to stop twice and literally get out of the car, pull onto the pavement, and like hunch over my yoga ball on all fours, just laboring through that contraction. And so this was around 7 p.m. So at this point, I had labored at home for about 7 hours. And so we made it to the hospital. And I remember when I was walking in, the security saw me and she just knew I was in labor. That's how like distraught I probably looked. She was like, woman in labor coming through. Like, she got me the elevator. When we got to our floor and when we were checking in, I could not say anything. I was just on the ground going through another contraction. So Tim checked in for me, and then my doula suddenly showed up. The minute she showed up and she started humming next to me, I felt this wave of like comfort. There were just techniques that she knew that instantly made me feel better. And so it was so nice that she was there helping me through my contractions. Tim was there, and we didn't wait that long before they took me into a triage room. So once we got in, I remember having my contraction. The staff came in, they were trying to put all these things on me to monitor baby and monitor me, but I could not stay still. And that's how you know you're like really in labor. I remember just like tucking my eyes because the bright lights were really bothering me. So my doula turned off the lights, and when the lights were on, she would shield my face, and that helped so much. And so I was just hunched over, still going through my contractions. I think we were in the triage room for maybe 20 minutes, but it felt like the longest 20 minutes ever. I just was in so much pain. Like, I feel like I was blacking in and out in the triage room. I barely really remember much of triage and onwards. I remember them coming in and saying, you need to get on your back so we can monitor you. And I couldn't even do that. And she was like, once a contraction ends, you just need to flip onto your back. I think they were doing my cervical exam. So after one contraction ended, I flipped over, shoved her hand into me, and then she realized that I was 10 centimeters fully dilated and ready to push. Suddenly, like, a bunch of people rushed in, and I was wheeled out in the bed, hunched over, and wheeled into the delivery room. That was like so dramatic and kind of out of like a movie. At that point, they were like, if you want to push, you can start pushing. And they actually offered me nitrous oxide, and I did end up taking it because I was just in so much pain at that point. So with pushing, I pushed for about 2 hours, and I feel like those 2 hours were the hardest 2 hours. And I think a lot of it is because I was just so exhausted from the day. I had barely eaten. And so while I was pushing, I just felt like I didn't have enough strength to push. We were trying all these different positions, like pushing on all fours, pushing on my side, but I just felt like I was so tired that I just wanted to lay down, which wasn't the optimal position. That's ultimately the position I delivered in. I had wanted to push in other positions to prevent all the tearing that you can do do when you push on your back. But I remember my legs were just shaking and they just felt so weak. So yeah, I ended up just pushing on my back, and baby actually got stuck kind of in my sacrum area. They kept telling me they were seeing his head come in and out, and I remember just asking them, like, can you just grab him for me? Like, I need help. And they were like, no, you can do it. And bless all the nurses and their beautiful souls, because encouragement and support I felt from those nurses, it was truly incredible. For these strangers to witness you in your most vulnerable state and just be there and cheer you on and hold you in different places to help you, like, I just felt so much love towards my doctors and nurses. I just felt so grateful. Okay, I had to change baby's diaper. So where were we? So after pushing, they basically do all their routine things. So we had them wait to clamp the cord. I think we waited about 10 minutes. Then they clamped the cord, and then Tim eventually cut it. They helped me deliver the placenta, and they actually showed Tim it, and it's wild. It is huge. They sewed me up. Basically, to move from the delivery room to the postpartum room, you have to be able to get up out of bed and use the restroom. So they helped me do that. And I will say the first pee was tough. It like took me a couple minutes to like actually go. I think it really stung. It just was tough to like actually start peeing. And then off we were to the postpartum room. I think we were there for 2 nights. So the night that I gave birth, and then one more night, and then I was discharged the next morning. Then we brought baby home, and that car ride is the wildest car ride, because it's like, I can't believe we just gave birth to this little human and we're bringing him home. It's wild. So that was my birth story. Let me know if you guys have any comments, questions about it. Let me know what your birth story was and if it was similar to mine. Now I'm gonna get into all the questions. I had you guys submit some questions through Instagram, so I bucketed them into a couple different sections. So pregnancy, labor, epidural, postpartum, and just general questions. So we'll go in that order. Let's talk pregnancy and birth prep. So the first question is, what prepared you for birth the most? Any special classes, tools, or techniques? So like I mentioned, I hired a doula. She is so wonderful, but since I had always planned for a natural unmedicated birth, I knew I wanted a doula to help me prep, and I learned so much from our sessions with her. I think we met like 3 or 4 times, and she just walked us through what pregnancy is like, what birth is going to be like, and so I knew kind of what to expect going in. I also took a couple different classes at Natural Resources and also the hospital. So I took a breastfeeding class that was 3 hours at Natural Resources, and then I took an intensive childbirth class. Both of them were with Tim too, bless his soul for coming with me. I think those really helped me, and then listening to other people's birth stories leading up to my birth, I think gave me more perspective and helped me know what to expect. How did you decide your labor plan? I'm always someone who doesn't really take medication unless I need it. So for example, if I'm sick, I don't really like take Advil or Tylenol unless I'm like really sick. And so with birth, it was kind of the same thing. I'm like, okay, let's see how bad the pain is. If it's really, really bad, then yeah, I'm open to the epidural. But if I don't need it, I don't want to get it. So I planned to not get it. And that's why my birth plan, I had written everything out, and it was definitely leaning towards like natural unmedicated. Next question, Amazon items that made my pregnancy easier. Luckily, I had a pretty smooth and easy pregnancy. I didn't really have nausea or anything. I was just pretty tired, so I just rest a bunch. But definitely in my 3rd trimester, I started doing a few things, not really help me through pregnancy, but to prep me for labor. So I was eating dates, I drank pregnancy tea, and I was drinking pineapple juice and walking about 2-3 miles a day. Did you go out in your last 4 weeks of pregnancy to see friends or nest and rest? I kind of did both. I was definitely getting more selective because I was just getting more and more tired. I didn't really want to like be uncomfortable or be out or be in an Uber. So I was pretty much a homebody and just nesting and resting, but definitely would call friends when I was out on my walks, or I would have friends come over. So let's talk labor. What techniques did you end up using during labor? So I was that girl who wanted to learn all the techniques, and it got to a point where it kind of like stressed me out because I was worried I wouldn't remember the techniques once I'm actually in labor, and that's exactly what happened. So I actually learned a lot from reading different books, from my doula, from YouTube, research, research. And ultimately, when I was delivering, I was just in such an animalistic state, because when you're doing an unmedicated birth, like, you go into a different zone. So thankfully I had Tim and my doula there to help remind me. But yeah, some of the techniques I would say are laboring at home as long as possible. When you're laboring and pushing, trying different techniques. When I was laboring, I pretty much was just on my hands and knees over my big ball. And when I was pushing, I tried side lying, I tried my hands and knees, and then I just did my back. How was it laboring at home? When did you know to drive to the hospital? I loved laboring at home. I felt so secure and safe and comfortable. And for me, this time I knew it was time to drive to the hospital when I was just like, I need the epidural, I need to go to the hospital. That's pretty much how far along I got before we left. Technically, my contractions weren't hitting the 3-1-1 pattern yet, but I mean, we still made it in time for me to be fully dilated, and so I think we hit that perfectly. Were you scared to give birth? How was the pain? I would say up until my 3rd trimester, I wasn't really scared of giving birth. Like, that's why I even wanted to have an unmedicated birth in the first place. I think if I was scared, then I would of course want pain medication. But I was like, this is something that's super natural to our body. So many people have done it without an epidural. So I was kind of like, I think I can do it too. Was it painful? Yes, it's definitely very painful, but you just need to trust your body. Your body knows what to do and you will get through it. Once you're like in it, you're just kind of in it and in the zone. The first couple days I was like, why did I do no epidural? That was the most painful thing ever. But then now looking back, I'm like, I would do the same thing all over again. Tips for a less painful birth. I think all the things I was doing in my 3rd trimester, drinking the pregnancy tea, which is good for your uterus, eating dates, drinking pineapple juice to help thin out the cervix, I think all of that helps. I think the walking also helps get baby in the right position. Positioning of the baby makes a big difference too, because I've heard if baby is one way, I can't remember which way, maybe sunny side up, you have more back labor, which means more back pain. So I didn't have that, luckily. What's something you wish you knew about labor and delivery that you didn't know? I think the biggest thing that struck me was how animalistic you become. In my head, I thought that I was gonna be very put together. I was gonna be reserved, be very mindful of the noises I was making, like who's coming in the room, who's looking at me, all this stuff. No, not at all. When I was in the zone, I don't even remember at what point my underwear came off. And I'm pretty sure my boobs were like everywhere. I was making all these noises that I did not expect myself to make. It was wild, but that's like the animalistic thing that I'm talking about. Like your body just knows. You just have to trust it and just know that in the moment, you're really not even going to care about some of these things. Now I have a whole section about epidural because I got so many questions about it, why I chose to not do it, what I did to help prep for no epidural. So let's get into it. Was it always your plan to do no epidural? Why did you decide not to use it? And will you do no epidural again? So I feel like I've answered this in bits and pieces throughout this video, but it was my plan to do no epidural. And the reason I did that is because I just am someone who doesn't really use medicine unless I need it. So that's why I was open to the epidural, but I definitely went in with the thought that if I don't need it, I don't want to get it. So I wanted to see how bad the pain was. And yeah, I mean, the first few days after giving birth, I was like, next birth, I'm definitely doing epidural, because everyone who gets an epidural, they look so put together, pretty. It seems like it just happens in a very calm and beautiful state. That was not the case for my birth. And so definitely the first few days I was like, yeah, next time I'm definitely doing epidural so I can also like take a cute photo. I didn't even have time to change into my hospital gown. But after the first week, I was like, okay, I'll definitely do my next birth like this one because I enjoyed it so much and it was such a positive birth experience. So I think next time I would still do no epidural. What did you do to prepare for no epidural? What helped you through the pain? I think to prep, obviously all the things I spoke to already about what I did during 3rd trimester, but I also read this book about hypnobirthing, and I think that kind of helped. Basically like envisioning a very positive, successful birth. I also heard like using combs, squeezing onto the combs, that pain can help divert some of the pain that you feel when you're in labor going through a contraction. But I actually didn't even have time to like whip out the combs and to use them. And then I had also heard essential oils can be helpful, but again, I didn't end up using those. And for getting through the pain, I guess just having like a strong support team, like Tim was incredible. He helped me so much and was just there to really like support me the whole day and get me anything that I needed. I do think the shower and the bath really helped. The warm water was really comfortable, and having my doula too, she was so helpful. What does the pain feel like? What was the pain level like without an epidural? It's definitely very painful. I don't even know what I can compare it to, but I feel like I've read things online that are like childbirth is like having 20 bones crushed at once. Sounds very intense, but it is just a lot of pain. It's like, imagine your worst period cramp times 20. Like, it just gets stronger and stronger, and you're just like, oh, like, I don't know. I wish I could give you a better explanation. It's so hard to describe what that feeling is like, but one of my girlfriends said it's kind of like a really, really, really bad stomach ache. Moving into postpartum, did you do 1 month confinement? How strictly did you follow it, and why? So in my culture, I'm Taiwanese. 1 month confinement or 坐月子 is very common. So my mom, she actually came and stayed with us the first month, and she basically stayed with us to help take care of me. I had ordered a postpartum meal plan, a Chinese postpartum meal plan called 月子 kitchen. So I had that for 2 weeks, and then my mom cooked the later 2 weeks, and she just helped with like chores around the house. And what I needed to do was just take care of the baby with Tim. I think culturally during the 1 month confinement, you're supposed to not go out. I did go out for baby's pediatrician appointments, and then I think towards the last week of my confinement, I went out for a walk with Tim. But other than that, I was pretty good about staying indoors. I think you're also not supposed to wash your hair, which is crazy. I don't know how they used to do that, but I washed my hair all the time. I just made sure to blow dry it. What was the hardest thing about postpartum? Honestly, it's just having to balance recovering and also taking care of a newborn and learning how to take care of a newborn. I think that's already hard in and of itself. And then having bleeding and figuring out how to rest and take care of yourself and be horizontal, which is what my doula and my mom kept telling me to do, just to be in bed. It's so hard because there's just so much to do at home. Dishes, laundry. With baby, you have to change the diaper, change his clothes. Like, there's just endless things to do. And so it was really hard for me to stay put. Looking back, I wish I did a better job of prioritizing that, because you just want your body to recover as much as possible. In the moment, I felt like I was superwoman. I could do it all. I was running on so much adrenaline, but it's just truly so important to let your body rest. So next time, I definitely want to rest more. How is the breastfeeding journey going? I did a whole video that I posted on my TikTok and my Instagram on breastfeeding. I basically had wanted to exclusively breastfeed, and now I'm combo feeding. So go check out that video. I'll put it here, link it down below for you guys to watch. What type of support do you have? How do you make time for date nights? So like I mentioned, I had my doula, and then my mom stayed with me the first month, and then we just hired a nanny. And we're really lucky because both of our parents live nearby, so they come quite often to help out, like on the weekends and stuff. So all of that support has allowed us to have some time to go out and do a dinner, just us two. And it's been really, really helpful to just feel so much love and support, and it's something that I'm extremely grateful for. Last couple questions. We are nearing the end. I feel like this has been such a long video. So these are the really juicy questions. So props to you if you stayed until now. Comment below if you're staying till the end. So the first question is around baby's name. Are you sharing his name? What is it? Do we get to know his name? Thoughts around sharing baby's name. So if you guys have been following me on my social media, you'll know I am not sharing baby's name. I'm not sharing his photo. I want to so badly. He's so adorable. Also, so many of you guys have followed me for so long, and I really want to share this part of my life with you. But during my pregnancy, I thought a lot about whether I wanted to share him and his personal details. Like, ultimately, he is his own person, and I want him to have the privacy if he wants it. So I just decided I'm gonna keep all his details personal, but I'm happy to share my life, my experiences. I just don't want to put that on him. So that's kind of how I landed on this decision. I know everyone has their own points of view. There's no right or wrong, but this is just what I felt comfortable with. But yeah, that is it to my birth story Q&A. I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment if you stayed until the end. If you guys did, you guys are the real ones. I love you all so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope this helped if you're pregnant and thinking about your whole birth and you're getting a little antsy about it. Just trust your body. You got this. You don't have to do no epidural. If you want to get the epidural, get it. If you don't want to do it, don't. It'll be fine either way. Just trust your body. You got this. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.